and welcome to another video. I wanted to share the making of these images with you, especially because they came about a little bit by accident. I was making some brushes the other day for some training materials that I'm making for a presentation I'm giving, and normally what I'll do when I'm creating brushes is I will create a blank page, and then when I've created the brush, let's go pick one up for you, then you can see what I mean. Flowers 3 it's called. I will usually try it on a plain background, and I just happen to pick this dark blue. Let's just go for a white brush, and just to try it out, and I've cut out this image as an example basically. And when I actually saw it on the blue background, it reminded me a little bit of a cyanotype. And those of you who have been watching my videos lately will see that I've actually done a video on cyanotypes and how to create them. It's really easy to use wet process if you're interested in getting into cameraless photography. And it got me playing about with these brushes. So I'm going to take you through how I created one of these images, this one in particular. Let me just edit that out of the way, undo that brush, and let's just go to switch this one back on again, and you can see what we've got here. I will show you how I made the brush, so that you get if you can't remember from one of the other videos, it will show you how I go about creating brushes to use in some of my composites. But if we look at how this is built up, we've got a brush applied once here, and then I've applied a number of the other brushes I've already got, which are, I think, Honesty Plants, Wild Carrot, and then I threw over a couple of textures, and it started to look a little bit like a wet cyanotype, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. So when I've been doing the wet cyanotype work, one of the reasons I wanted to do it was I wanted to merge cyanotype images with my own photography. So I decided to open up one of my cyanotype images, which I felt would make a good overlay, and this is what we ended up with. And I'll show you the actual cyanotype image so you can see what that looks like. That's a photograph I took of the cyanotype once it had dried, and brought it into Photoshop and just edited it slightly, but it gives you an idea of how this image is built up with that overlay in it. And so I then set about playing about with some other images. Let me just get rid of that brush. And I ended up with these two other images, as you can see, and they're done in a similar way. But what I've done is to make them as a set, I've used the same cyanotype overlay, so they're a little bit of set and there's some commonality between them there. So before we finish, I'll show you how I made the brush, and then it'll be a reminder to you. I think it's in one of the other videos, the brush making thing, but let's just let's get that off there so that we've got a plain blank page there, and we'll pop these away so they don't distract us. And we're going to open up this image here, which is an image I made on the Lightpad. And believe it or not, these are artificial flowers, but they can make quite good still life studies and basically trials if you're playing with the Lightpad. It's just an easy way to get hold of a few flowers if you get a few artificial ones just to play about with. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to first of all crop this down, and if you remember from one of the other videos, your image for creating brushes mustn't be any bigger than 2500 pixels on the long edge. So we're going to get this down to here, bring it in as close as we can, and we've got to be able to now remove the background on this, and we've got to make what we call the background transparent so that doesn't appear in when we create the brush. So we've got couple of ways we can do that. People use different ways of cutting out objects in Photoshop, but there's a couple of ways you can try. First of all, we'll try it with the eraser, the magic eraser tool. And if we click on that, you'll see what happens is it will take out certain sections and we can start going round and removing sections, but it can get quite laborious, especially if you've got lots of leaves and things like that. So that's obviously not the best way to do it. Another way, which I usually find is quite good, is using the colour range option on the select menu. If we click on colour range, we can select what parts we want to hopefully remove or select. And in this case, I've chosen the highlights because we've got a white background, so the chances are it's going to select all the white background for us, and we can make an easy selection doing that way. We've also got this range, or what you would call the Fuzziness Tool, more or less a range. And if you see how that works, what we do is we get it to what would probably be the optimum, and with the range here we can just move it until we've got nice blacks and nice whites, and hopefully if we click OK we should have a good selection. And you can see, looking at that we've actually got quite a good selection there. So if we promote this to a layer by clicking on the padlock there and hit the delete key, we've now deleted all of the background on that, and that's going to be sufficient for a brush. And if we do the select deselect, so it selects all those little marching ants, gets rid of those, we can now go to edit, define brush preset, and if we click that, and then we can save that as a brush, give it a name and save it as a brush. Now just to remind you that if that define brush set is grayed out, the chances are your image is bigger than 2500 pixels, therefore you will need to resize it down. But that now, if I show you on here, which I've already got one I did earlier, is now a brush that I've defined called Flowers 3. And if we use this blank background here, you can see we can now lay that. I picked a white brush, we can now lay that on there, and we get that. We can test out the brush on there to see what it looks like. That looks okay to me. And we'll go back to the other images so that you can see them on here. And we're back to our images. So this video is really to give you a little bit of encouragement to play and enjoy, if you like, the serendipity of playing about with some of your images, some of your textures, trying to be a little bit more creative with them, and you don't know what you might get. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.